round, he is risen. Over and over in a never-ending round, he is risen. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Did the grass sing, did the earth pound? Alleluia. Did the grass sing, did the earth pound? Alleluia. You are holy God, a perfect and holy God. We will come before you with hearts made clean by Jesus' blood. You are holy God, a perfect and holy God. We will come before you with hearts made clean by Jesus' blood. We are standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around. Let us praise Jesus now. We are standing in His presence. We are standing in His presence. We are standing in His presence on holy ground. Cover me, Lord, with your presence. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well with my soul. My sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin, not in part, but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the face shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well with my soul. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your ways. And step by step you lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your ways. And step by step you lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. And I will follow you all of my days. And I will follow you all of my days.
All right. We have been talking about encouragement, and we've talked about the Word and some of the ways. We're kind of looking at some different aspects of that. And, of course, ultimately how we can become better encouragers as well. I want to begin by looking at a passage. We're going to look at Romans 8 in a minute, but I want to look at Matthew 4 and verse 11. Kind of finish up a little bit what we were talking about last week. How God is how we see encouragement in the Godhead. Father, Son, Spirit. And we were talking about what all that looks like. Of course, God gives a word of exhortation, of encouragement, but God Himself, and how that's even reflected in the Godhead with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. I want to notice a familiar passage here, but I want you to think about this in Matthew chapter 4 and verse 11. Of course, this is Jesus has come to the end of His 40 days with His battle with Satan. It will not be the last time He battles Satan, right? We know that. Luke's gospel tells us that in Luke's account, says in Luke 4 and verse 13, when the devil had finished all this tempting, he left him until an opportune time. What's that mean? He didn't quit. Satan never does. Well, think about that. 24/7. Every moment, every ounce of what he is and does is to lie, deceive, tempt us, discourage us. It's all trying to get us to what? Walk away. I mean, what's he doing to Adam and Eve in the garden? We'll talk about that next week. We're going to talk about the garden, the temptation there. But he's trying to get Adam and Eve to, I mean, we may not use the word discourage them, but that's what he's doing, isn't he? Trying to get them to falter. Trying to get them to turn. Trying to get them to doubt, to question God, right? Does God have my best intentions? You know, He doesn't want you to eat of the fruit because He doesn't want you to be like Him, right? See? That's discouragement. And they fell for it, and we'll talk about it. So Satan was constantly working on Jesus, and we know that later on, he would, but at the end of this temptation, at the end of the temptations, it says in verse 11, the devil left him, and angels came and ministered to him. What I want you to think about is Jesus allowed this to be done. He allowed Himself to be encouraged. Why we say, Robert, okay, but why is that important? Why might that be important for us to think about and for us and our lives? And I mean, first of all, He's been without food? Is he tired? Yeah. Is he alone? Yes. Hungry? And He could have provided all those things He needed for Himself, right? I mean, he could have done that, right? Could He have turned the stones to bread? Sure. But He chose to go through the trial, the testing, and the trusting of God. And so, but why is that important that He allowed Himself to be encouraged here? An example. Okay. Only takes so much for you need filling up. Yeah, Matt?
Well, he allowed himself to suffer this world like we do. I mean, the thing of it is if Jesus hadn't gone through that, if he had turned the bread or the stones to bread, I can't do that.
Right. Charlie can't relate to me. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Why that's important. Go ahead. To show his humanity? Yeah, absolutely. What is he? Let's come back to this issue, though, of he has. I mean, remember what he tells Pilate when Pilate's like, I have the power and the authority to what? Take your life or say, and Jesus says what?
Yes, no.
You have no. Who had all power and authority? Jesus. And yet, what does he choose to do? We would say, is that an act of humility? Is that an act of surrender? I mean, aren't we sometimes our worst enemy with getting help? Come on now. Come on, give it to me. What are we? Because we want to do what? I'm struggling. I'm being overwhelmed. The weight of everything. But I'm going to what? I'm going to do it because I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to be a burden. Right?
I've got a great example for you.
Okay.
Right there says my brother.
Okay.
31 years ago, Carol, we went to Oklahoma City. I had pressure on me. I had her in the hospital.
Uh-huh.
We were going for my youngest son that was in Oklahoma City because he had to be transported.
Yeah.
And I told my grandmother and my mother that I don't know if my shoulders are big enough.
Mm-hmm.
God, there's a passage in here in
Mhm.
this book. God says he won't give you more than you can handle.
Yeah, that's right.
And that man right there, this woman sitting beside me, they know how much I carry. And I've only got a couple of times in my life that I felt that that it was almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I never walked away from it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know. And that one right there has never walked away from me.
Yeah. I like how brothers talk to each other. That one right there. I love that guy. No good, that guy right there. No, he's right. And you allowed yourself to be helped, and that itself is an act of humility, and it takes strength. It actually, we think it's weakness to ask for help, right? Is Jesus weak? No. But Jesus needed what? In his humanity. Now, this is his humanity, okay? You say, oh, wait a minute, it's always God, 100%, and then he's 100%. Okay, I know it's a mystery. It can get our head spinning, but in his humanity, he had to eat, sleep. He could get tired. He would be tempted like we are. Like Matt said, if he can't relate to us. Okay, Jeff, does I see a hand?
Well, you might even use it towards the importance of the church.
Okay.
A lot of people that, try to worship God or have a relationship with the Lord outside of the church.
Yeah.
Jesus came to build his church, and it gives examples of the different things that people do in the church. They all work together for one thing. So I think that's also they're allowing the church.
Yeah. So, we struggle with receiving encouragement sometimes, don't we? And I know it's kind of an old American way that's kind of maybe in some ways died off, but it's still there. It's, I can do this and that, but that's pride. And that's, the devil wants us actually to think we can do it. And that we don't really need anyone, or it's a sign of weakness, or I'll be a burden on other people, or whatever it might be. Jesus, the angels came and they encouraged him. I know the word's not in there, but I'm telling you the idea is that. They what's it say? They ministered to him. Right? I think it's important. Yeah, Matt, I'm sorry. Oh, yes.
So, in overall,
Uh-huh.
just in all aspects. Whenever you see them seeking out encouragement
Mhm.
or maybe asking for a helping hand, that also in turn is encouragement to me because
Yeah.
it's like, well, this person is, able to step back and say, I need, this is a little bit more, I need a little bit help. And
Yeah.
it almost makes me, reminds me that we're all in that spot sometimes, and we're all human. So in that
Yeah.
in turn, it encourages others.
Yeah, because we can get to thinking, well, boy, everybody at church Sundays just seems like they got their life all together and they're strong. I mean, and they're all faithful, and I mean, look at them, they're smiling, they're dressed nice, and everything's going great in their family, it looks like, and I'm over here struggling, but I can't say anything. And of course, we know that's a little bit of a put on sometimes, what we do, and sometimes we, but absolutely, you're right. When I see someone else, it makes it real that, hey, they're struggling too. They need encouragement, just like I do. And absolutely. Any other things about why we struggle with receiving it? And yeah, go ahead, Matt.
But I think there's also that can also be a double-edged sword. I mean, we've all known people that seem like they're just constantly seeking
Right.
encouragement.
Sure.
I mean, and then there's other people, that I won't name names, but that just don't want any encouragement at all. They just want you just leave me alone.
Right.
I'll do my thing. And, I mean, so there's got to be some
Yeah.
kind of balance.
Sure. Well, the Bible talks about bear one another's burdens, Galatians 6, and then it says, each one should bear their own burden. There are some responsibilities that I have that I can't pass off on you. That
We've all got a part to play.
that's right. I can't be faithful for you. I can't.
And if Jesus didn't fulfill his part, make it the 40 days,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine 5 days in and all of a sudden he's got to have the angels.
Right.
So,
That's right. That's right. And again, our problem has often been not that we overburden with people, but our problem is we try to hold it and do it ourselves, at least in the church. And there's always going to be, like Matt said, there's going to be individuals that's like, I mean, they're always ready to ask for help, and that's fine, but we probably struggle more of us with keeping that in. Yeah, James?
Sometimes we struggle with not wanting the encouragement because we know that sometimes that encouragement comes in the form of a kick in the butt.
Okay, that's right. I'm glad you said it that way, not me, but I agree. I agree exactly with what you're saying. We sometimes don't want it because of that word of exhortation we talked about. God will not always just come and affirm everything we're doing. He'll get us in and get us going and say, hey, you got to change. And that's that encouragement or correction. I think Matt mentioned that last week as well. It doesn't mean any sort.
Me and him have a person up there that she walked with a 3-time pitchfork.
Yeah, you bet.
We still feel that to this day.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I think Peter's a good example,
Okay.
about, it's funny, kind of like King David, we think immediately of his fall,
Right.
and yet, he's a man that God loved him. And you think of Peter, that he denied God. We couldn't believe that Peter would sit there with Jesus there and
Right.
do that, and he'd curse. But, the apostles, he came back, and I'm sure the apostles, they drew that from the apostles.
Yeah.
Going back, but
Yeah, and Jesus later is talking to him on the sea with the breakfast. Simon Peter, do you love me more than these? To feed my lamb, feed my. He's trying to encourage Peter back that hey, I'm not done with you. You messed up, but and I think that's what we all. And again, maybe but that's still going to come back to pride, right? Because if I let it out there that I'm. So it's a great challenge for us. So Jesus, I want you to see that the Son recognized that he needed encouragement. He was willing to receive that and accept that, and the Father provided just what he needed, and so we see. I just want you to see a little bit in the encouragement in the Godhead, and you'll see it later on in the Garden of Gethsemane. Father, if it's possible, and he's praying, and Jesus is always relying on God, and that's why he is quoting Scripture, is because he's going to be led by God, and that encouragement will come from the Word of God. And we talked about that a little bit, prayer. And let's come back to that a little bit of the idea. So let's look at another passage here, Romans 8. I want to look at Romans 8 here before I lose track of it here in the next few weeks. But Romans 8, let's look at this for a few minutes. Another passage. These are familiar. We'll do a little more reading here. All right, let's read this. Romans 8, let's do 18 through 25. So let's somebody get 18 through 21. Who's got that for us? Romans 8, 18. Okay, Dolores. Then somebody get 22 through 25. Who'd like to read that? 22 through 25. Okay, Ivana. All right, Romans 8, 18 through 21. Dolores.
For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the anxious longing of the creation waits eagerly for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself also will be set free from its slavery to corruption into the freedom of the glory of the children of God.
We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved, but hope that is seen is not hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently.
Okay, what you see here in these verses, just think about what was read and what you look at here. How does this describe the world, the current human condition, the reality of this world? I mean, what are some words that kind of describe this reality, this world? I mean, our existence, our experience. I mean, what are some things he says about this world? Like what? It's groaning. Okay. Bondage. Sufferings. See any other words in there? Just anxious. Do you see futility? What's futility? Someone says it's resistance. Star Trek fans, resistance is what? What's that mean? Useless. Yeah. Solomon would say in Ecclesiastes, all is vanity, right? You think you're going to get somewhere, you're really going to get something out of this life, this world, and I'm going to work hard, and it's going to provide, and it can just be like trying to grab the air. It can be pointless. Well, any other words there that just kind of describe the human condition, the world there? What? Birth pains, yeah. Pain. We think of child. What? Slavery, yeah. I mentioned bondage, slavery. Yeah. And so how does that stress the importance of suffering? I mean, because of these sufferings and trials, how does that stress encouragement? I mean, those words itself are heavy. Those are discouraging, right? Bondage, groaning, futility, sufferings, hardships. Well, we know hope, right? Yeah, that's the key. And so we know this is what the world offers. What we need is encouragement, and we need to encourage others, and that's what he's doing here. And so we know that God's going to redeem everything. That's what he's ultimately going to say. But in the meantime, we have to wait patiently. Now that's the part we don't like, right? We have to wait patiently with that hope. But notice how he describes here some words here of what he does. The hope and the patience. He describes it here with some words. Well, let's keep reading. That's what I wanted to do. Let's read this section, the next section, then we'll come back to these words. Somebody go ahead and read 26 through 30. Who'd like to read that for me? Okay, Ron, 26 through 30 of Romans 8.
In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know that we ought searches our hearts, knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints in accordance with God's will.
Okay, he says likewise. Don't overlook that in verse 26. In the same way. Well, go back to verse 25. Look at the connection. Ivana mentioned that hope. End of verse 24. For in this we hope we're saved, but hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have, right? A lot of people are hoping for maybe a certain gift here in a couple of days, aren't they? Probably some children. Do you suspect? Are hoping. They don't have it yet, right?
Or the children at heart.
Yeah, they're children at heart. They don't have it yet. You don't hope for what you have. And he says, we don't have this existence yet, this redemption that he just described, that God's going to, transform and redeem our bodies, and this world, this earth as well, is going to be redeemed. He says, verse 25, but if we hope for what we do not have yet, we wait for it patiently. Now, verse 26, in the same way of this patient wait, in the same way the Spirit helps us in our weaknesses. He helps. Look at a couple of these words. Just as hope with patience provides encouragement, the Spirit provides us encouragement, but it's going to be, again, it's going to be similar. He describes it here in several ways. Look at some of these words. He says help. The word is to come to the aid of, to grasp hold of. Do you remember this was Martha's complaint? Remember with Mary? Remember they're having Jesus over, and Jesus knew this family, knew these sisters well, knew their brother Lazarus, probably had many meals in their home. They're having a special occasion meal. And Martha is busy what? Preparing, like some of you ladies, and a few of you guys are going to be doing that are in the kitchen this week. You're going to be what? That's a lot. I mean, how many, you host just 5, 6, 7, 8 people. That can be stressful. I mean, some of you are going to host, how many? 20? That's a lot. I mean, you got the rolls and the cornbread, green bean casserole and the ham and there's a lot in that kitchen, right? And have you ever seen someone who should be in there helping, especially like maybe dishes and just kind of because I don't know how it is. I think I've said this before. The holidays are great. I love it when my children, their daughters especially, they're cooking and baking. But afterwards, that kitchen can look like a tornado blew through there. So have you ever known a family member that they're just sitting in there just watching TV, just sitting back in the easy chair? Maybe it's your sister. Maybe it's a sister-in-law. Maybe it's I don't know. Have you ever seen that? And you're like Martha, aren't you, a little bit in your heart? What? Get in here and help. I'm providing all this. I need some help in here. And Martha is doing that. And she says, tell her to help me. That's our word. Grab hold of. Come to the aid of. She's trying to get the bread out of the oven and then stir she needs more hands. Sometimes you get too many hands, and some of you know when you've walked in the kitchen at a family gathering and there's 7 women in there. Okay, there's plenty. You get too many in there, right? But come to the aid of, and that's what he doesn't do it when we're strong. He helps us in our weaknesses. And we know the things that make us weak, right? Some of these things we just described, the present condition of our world. There's bondage, there's groanings, there's hardships. He doesn't mention, specifically we could say sin. These things make us weak. Jesus was weak at that moment. He'd been without food for what? 40 days. He'd been mentally battling Satan. Now, he did not sin. The Bible's very clear on that. But do you think he was mentally, emotionally, spiritually exhausted of that? Yes. And he's in a position in his humanity, he's weak. He needs some encouragement. He needs some help. And that's what the angels and God provide. And so that's what the Spirit does. He helps us. He comes to the aid of in the same way. And how does this look? We're deficient. That word weakness. Some things make us weak. Look at another word here to use. He intercedes. He pleads. He intervenes. He makes an appeal. This would often be, for making an appeal for another, pleading for another. And look how he says it here. Specifically, when we don't know how to what? How to pray. The Spirit Himself intercedes. Now, it's one of those passages, if you say, well, tell me, explain that. What exactly? I don't know. I can't tell you exactly what that looks like, how that works. I just know by faith, that is what the Spirit does. That when I'm unable to pray as I should, or know what to ask, or what to say, the Spirit intercedes for us through wordless groans. He searches our hearts. He knows, and He who searches our hearts and knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for God's people. Now there's the key in verse 27. It's according to what? According to His will. Now that's a problem for us, because sometimes we want the encouragement we want, the help we want from God is what? Just take that problem away. Just solve it right now. Just end it. And God often says what? Not yet. I'm going to help you another way. I'm going to strengthen you in your struggle. I'm going to be in the boat like Jesus was in the middle of a storm, right? I mean, they're struggling. The winds and the waves, and they're panicking, but Jesus is there with them. And sometimes it's not calming every storm immediately, but just calming us, being with us. And so the Spirit is going to do it according to the will of God. He says, according to the will of God. I think that's what, and there are some religious groups that, they act like the Spirit and God is their genie, their whatever, their Santa Claus. I don't know, that they just, whatever they want, because of some things Jesus says, ask and it'll be given to you. They take some of those passages and they make it like, well, I asked God and He didn't do it. Well, it has to be according to the will of God. Remember Paul one time prayed about his thorn in the flesh? 3 times he appealed to God. And what? The answer was, oh, you're going to keep that thorn, and my grace is going to be sufficient. It's going to strengthen you. Now, we don't know what Paul's weakness was. A lot of people think he had a disease in his eyesight, and he was going blind. And so we don't know. But whatever it was, Paul was told, that's going to also, do you know, also remember in that passage, it says it's going to keep you what, Paul? Humble. What did we just talk about? When you're sometimes not willing to ask for help, it's because of what? Pride. So if Paul is going blind, he's going to need what? He's going to need help. He's going to get around the Roman Empire. He's going to travel on the ship. He's going to write. No, he's going to need help. Just think about that. Have you seen that in lives, your lives, others? What became their weakness or their struggle, their hardship, their trial, became that which God strengthened them through it and helped them through it, and ended up being their faith strong, and maybe other people. We talked about the impact it has on other people. Yeah, God can use that. Now again, do we want that? Would that be our way? If we, some of you have had some debilitating health issues, right? Is that what you would want if you had your way? No. Would you want your spouse, or you've had kids? I know some of you have had that. Maybe right now you do. But God is going to still help us. He's going to provide us strength when we, and it's going to be according to the will of God. I think the thing about all this is, he says there that it's according, you go on in verse 28 and 29, for we know that in all things God works for the good, right? And we know that verse, of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. So this is God's purposes, God's will. And God will work good for those who follow Him, for those who are His children, and it'll be according to His purposes. And He says in verse 29, for those He foreknew, He also predestined. Look at that. To be conformed, here's the goal, here's the will of God. Okay, this passage is all leading to this. To be conformed to the image, what? Of His Son. What's another way of saying, what's God's goal for us? To become like Jesus. Wait a minute. How was Jesus' life on this earth? Was it always easy? He suffered. He was what in the wilderness we just saw? Hungry. He was tempted. Tired. Someone mentioned Peter. What did his best friend do? Denied him. Another one of his followers betrayed him. Stabbed him in the back. Right? I mean, all that Jesus went through. And what was God doing? He was strengthening His Son. Jesus is perfected. In His weaknesses, He was without sin. So as Matt said, He's the example for us. But He can relate to us because He Himself knows what it's like to struggle, even though He did not personally sin in that regard. But all of that means that God's going to make, His goal is to make me like Jesus. But that may mean I'm going to go through some hard times. And I'm going to need, like Jesus needed. I love the video we watched Wednesday on The Chosen, if you haven't been watching Wednesday nights. But and we know that it's not, it's imagining what might have been, kind of taking the text and kind of making it like a TV series. Okay, what might have been like in these situations, these stories in the Gospels, even though it's not, they're not following the Scriptures in every way. Obviously, they're taking that license, but trying to be faithful. And we looked at the one Wednesday night, and Jesus got discouraged when His apostles, James and John, asked, put up by their mom, right? If they could sit what? And I liked how The Chosen showed that, as it often does. It makes the humanity of Jesus come alive, because Jesus had to he went off by himself for a little bit. It discouraged him. It bothered him. And we know often He became frustrated with His apostles, didn't He? Yes. Often. And so are we going to get frustrated and discouraged by sometimes our brothers and sisters in Christ? Are we? Yes. We're going to go through the same thing. And all of this is to make us like Jesus. And so those He predestined, He called. And so I can't stress that enough, that the world has one environment. We get to create another kind of environment in the church. And that's what Jeff was talking about, the church. We get to create an environment of what in the church? All the things that the world is, a hardship, a burden, discouragement, temptation, groanings, slavery. The church, we get to provide in the body of Christ an environment that's what? Our goal should be to what? Provide a loving, what? What else? A helpful, hospitable, what? Hope, patient, peace, kindness, acceptance. All these things that you don't get in the world come tomorrow. You're going to get the opposite of that for the most part. And you can find it sometimes in pockets where God may, but we in the church are providing a different kind of an environment from the world, otherworldly. And that's our job as Christians, to be encouragers. Any comments on this verses or anything said? If you have something that maybe come to mind, just got a minute or two. If anybody's got yes, Tony.
I've thought about some of this being conformed to the image of Christ. In one sense, being conformed to His image when we submit to the waters of baptism.
Yeah,
die and rise. Also.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's one of the strongest arguments you can make for someone to be baptized, and say, hey, Jesus surrendered and submitted in obedience and was baptized. Do you not need to be? Are you better than Jesus? So absolutely, he humbled and surrendered himself. Any other comments or what we said about encouragement? Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Also, the idea of conformed as well, and the idea that he's the firstborn of the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be resurrected. There's life after death.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're looking forward to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's that hope. And while in between, we wait patiently, right? But we're going to need in between lots of encouragement, because this world will beat us down if we don't have that with Christ. Okay, all right. We're going to look at the Genesis 3 next week a little bit. So if you want to be looking in Genesis 3, we'll look at that next week. All right.
Glorious in heaven above, humbly you came to the earth you created, all for our sake became